Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Unitarian Congregation of Mendon and Uxbridge with Reverend Patricia Hatch. My name is Matthew Marion, and today I'm going to be starting off our service with My Way, originally championed by Frank Sinatra. I'd like to share with you the first verse of some of the lyrics that were originally written by Gilles Tybalt. And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear. I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I've traveled each and every highway and more. Much more than this, I did it my way. My way.
Thank you, Matt. Good morning and welcome again to the Unitarian Congregation of Mendon and Uxbridge. As always, it's so good to be together again, in person, and also those of you who are joining us online. Today's opening words come from Reverend Scott Taylor and the chalice lighting by Catherine Callahan. Both are slightly adapted. We gather as people of stories. We learn of those who have gone before. The way in front of us becomes more clear. We weave together the tales of who we are. Our loneliness lessens, and the web of our oneness is revealed. As we listen deeply in those times of tender trust, we descend into the longings and learnings, hopes and fears of the humanity we share. Beneath the wells from which we drink, there is a deeper well that feeds them all. Come, let us tell each other tales of our thirst. Let us drink from the stories that sustain us all. As the chalice is lit, let us come together into the sacred space that we have created. Let the cares of the day fall away, and know that here is a place for quiet reflection and for breathing into our true selves. Let what is said and felt here add richness to our lives. We are better together in community. Let the warmth of the chalice, lit during our time together, connect us and carry us into the world. Please join me in the unison affirmation of the congregation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. We will have candles for joys and concerns later in the service. Those who are present will be invited to come forward and light a candle if they wish, and those who are online may send in any candles they would like to be lit during the chat or the contact form on the webpage. I'll light a candle for those things. Our opening hymn is number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. You're invited to rise in body or spirit as we sing together. The Smuggler by an anonymous writer or storyteller. At the border crossing in a country far away from here, many years ago, a border guard noticed a traveler approach. She was leading a donkey whose back was stacked with heavy bales of straw. The guard's job, among other things, charged him with making sure that travelers did not smuggle goods into the country. Watching the woman approach, the guard's intuition told him to be suspicious of her. He stopped the woman, asking to look inside of the straw bales on the donkey's back. He looked through the straw, but he couldn't find anything valuable hidden in the straw. "But I'm certain you're smuggling something," the official said, as the woman crossed the border. She merely smiled. Now this happened each week for years. The woman came to the border with her donkey, bearing bales of straw. Although the guards searched and searched the straw bundles on the donkey's back, searched through the hem of the traveler's robes, then inside her food and water bundles, he never could find anything valuable hidden in them. Each week he did this, for many years, always remaining suspicious. Finally, the official retired, and he happened to spot the woman in a marketplace. And he said to her, "Please tell me, I beg you, tell me, what were you smuggling?" "Whatever do you mean, sir?" the woman asked. "I'm no longer a guard," said the man, "and even if I could get you into trouble, I won't do that. I won't get you in trouble, but for years I knew you were smuggling something, and I only want my curiosity satisfied so that I can die in peace and not wonder anymore what it was you were smuggling." The woman leaned in. She said, "You're right then. Every time I cross the border into your country, I was smuggling—" "What?" said the guard. "Donkeys," she said. It is now time for the offering. It is more blessed to give than to receive. Would the ushers please come forward to collect the morning offering? And thank you to all of you who give of your time, of your talent, of your treasure, and of your heart.
Today's offering song will be "The Times They Are Changing" by Bob Dylan. And now this is a favorite song of mine, and it would be a disservice not to share some of the legendary lyrics from this song here. Come gather around people wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone if your time to you is worth saving. And you better start swimming or you sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changing. Come writers and critics who prophesize with your pen, and keep your eyes wide open, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin, and there's no telling who that's its naming. For the loser now will later be the win, for the times they are a-changing. Come senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall, for he that gets hurt will be he who has stalled the battle outside raging. We'll soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are changing. Come mothers and fathers throughout the land, and don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old role is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can't lend your hand, for the times they are changing.
Thank you, Matt. I now invite you into a time of meditation. This meditation has 3 parts. I will say a few words, And then I will play my singing bowl as we continue in that spirit of prayer and meditation. Finally, we will sing Spirit of Life together, and you can remain seated for that. Let's begin with taking a few deep breaths together. Center ourselves. Let us open our minds and hearts to the place of quiet, to the silent prayer for the healing of pain, to the soft, gentle coming of love and peace. Peace. Children were writing lists with great attention at the campground dining hall table. The counselor, Sarah, walked around and she saw one 6th grade girl writing, I can't hit the soccer ball into the net. I can't do division with more than 3 numbers. I can't get Billy to like me. And then Sarah, the counselor, looked at a boy's paper, and he had written, I can't hit a home run. I can't do 10 push-ups. I can't eat only 1 cookie. The counselor returned to her table, and she reviewed her own list, which said, I can't get my sailing license. I can't get my bread to rise. I can't even get my brother to fill the car with gas when he borrows it. After a moment, Sarah said, Are you finished? Write down your last I can't, which the children did. She instructed them to fold their papers and bring them up to her table. And on Sarah's table was a shoebox, which she put all the papers into the box and put her own on top. She closed the lid and sealed it. She said to the group, I want you to follow me outside. They went outside and stopped along the way to pick up some matches. They went to the area where they had campfires, and Sarah said, Children, we are going to say our final goodbyes to I can't. Each kid wanted to participate in helping arrange the logs and kindling, so they all worked together, and Sarah placed the box in the middle of the wood. Then the children stood in a circle around the fire, and she told them to watch. And Sarah said, Friends, we gather to say goodbye to I can't. While I can't was with us on earth, he touched all of our lives, some more than others. I can't's name, unfortunately, has been spoken in every building, in camps, schools, workplaces, city halls, state capitals, even the White House. We will light this fire and demolish the power that I can't has over us. He will be survived by his siblings. I can, I will, and I'm going to right now. They are not always as well known as their famous relative. But perhaps one day, with your help, I can, I will, and I am going to right now, will tell their stories even more and make a bigger impact on the world. Goodbye, I can't. May we all move forward without I can't and go along with his siblings. I can, I will, and I am going to right now. And the children and counselor all enjoyed the glorious bonfire and celebrated the departure of I can't. They toasted marshmallows and had s'mores. This story was inspired by Chick Moomin in Tony Campolo's Chicken Soup for the Soul. So it's his story with a major rewriting. Stories are ever present in our lives, as they are how we make meaning of the world. Stories that we hold as beliefs have real impacts in our lives, as the story about the campers showed. In writing this sermon, I realized there are millions of ways a sermon about stories could go. Stories are ubiquitous, and bigger stories, meta-narratives, are present in every human culture. We don't even realize how much we live in the realm of stories. It is like that story about the fish, paraphrased from David Foster Wallace. One fish says to the other, "This water is very cold." The other fish says, "What the heck is water?" One of my seminary professors said that culture makes invisible. The more we are aware of our personal stories and the stories that are part of our cultural understanding, the more we can choose better stories for ourselves and our world. For example, part of becoming an anti-racist person in our society is understanding and dismantling stories of white supremacy. Understanding and dismantling stories of white supremacy and white superiority, and refusing to enact these stories anymore. A story is a bridge between the past and the present and the future. Memories of the past are stories that we curate about things that have happened. Dreams for the future are stories we create about how we want the future to go. The universe is made of stories, not atoms, said Muriel Rukeyser. The universe is made of stories, not atoms. And I know this is true because the quote itself is a story. And when we talk about atoms, that's another kind of story. We are actually swimming in a sea of stories. The stories we tell matter. We have the choice to affirm the stories we want to live by, the choice to say no to the stories we don't want to live under, and the choice to be thankful that we have this gift of life whereby we can be actors in the stories that we choose to enact. What are the stories we tell and the stories we're influenced by? We narrate the stories of our lives. We tell ourselves and others stories about our childhoods, our families, our educations, our beliefs, our careers, our opportunities, our misfortunes, all about our lives. We're always telling stories to ourselves and others. We are victims, or victorious, or somewhere in between. People sometimes tell stories about their health. People who are coping with serious illnesses can see themselves as victims, survivors, warriors, or as people who find the silver linings in every cloud. If we are successful at something, we may tell ourselves it is because of our talents or our hard work, or because of the people who have supported us along the way, or because God has blessed us, or some combination of all these things. If we are unsuccessful at something, we may tell ourselves that is because we are stupid or lazy, or because the other people involved failed, or maybe it was destiny that we fail. All stories. Or perhaps the failure happened to make room for the next success. Another story. There are an unlimited number of stories we can tell about particular events in our lives and about our whole lives. We write the stories. We choose the stories. We enact the stories. Several years ago, I had a root canal done. For those of you who also experienced it, it's not a fun thing to experience. I didn't like having the tooth problem. I didn't like the procedure, which would be followed up by a crown, yet another procedure. I also didn't like the expense that my insurance wouldn't completely cover. But I had to do it, so I went and got it done. That day, to add insult to injury, there was a problem with the office computer after I had the root canal. And I had to be patient while they figured out the technology, and I was not feeling patient. I just wanted to go home. And I had to have extra x-rays done because the first x-rays didn't take because of the computer problem. And I was pretty unhappy. I just didn't like the way this day was going. However, on my drive home, I decided to tell myself a different story. The root canal went well overall, and the problems that day in the office weren't so big in the overall scheme of things. And there were lots of other things in my life to be thankful about. So that day, I chose to be thankful and to tell myself a better story. And then I realized something. I realized that when we are thankful, we find ourselves as the actors in better stories. When we are thankful, we find ourselves as the actors in better stories. Sociologist and author Christian Smith wrote about human stories. Many years ago, our ancestors huddled around fires, listening to shamans and elders telling stories by which they made sense of their worlds and their lives. They told myths and tales about the world's and people's origins, about gods and heroes, about overcoming adversity, about visions for the future. By their stories, our ancestors made meaning of a world that was mysterious and dangerous. This was the condition of traditional human societies of all kinds until a few hundred years ago. Christian Smith writes that all of that has changed. We moderns no longer have to huddle around fires telling fanciful myths. Science, rationality, and technology have dispelled the darkness and ignorance that once held the human race captive to fables. Now we have scientific facts, technology, and rational understanding. We have left the fear and ignorance of ancient myths and have progressed into the daylight of rational scientific knowledge. We are looking at a brighter future now that we have shed the old way of looking at things and live in the light of science, not myth. Such is the story we modern people, huddled around our televisions and computers and electric lights, like to tell each other. This is a dominant narrative by which some people make sense of the world and our purpose in it. However, the belief that we have progressed is also a story. We modern folks are as much makers, tellers, and believers in stories by which we frame our existence as our ancestors were. Although our stories may be different, we are still the story creators, the storytellers, and the participants in stories. And there is such power in telling stories because in the power of telling stories, we create our lives by the stories we tell and then enact. We also live under the umbrellas of big stories, whether we are aware of it or not. There are many big stories or meta-narratives in every culture. I think this has to be Story Sermon Part 1 because there is so much more to be said about stories. But I wanted to ask you, what are the big stories operating here in Mendon, Uxbridge, in our communities and in our congregation? I mentioned to a friend that I was preaching on the stories we enact, and she asked a good question. What stories do you enact in your congregation? So let me ask you again, what stories do we enact at the Unitarian Congregation of Mendon and Uxbridge? What stories have operated here for a long time, and what stories will we choose to embrace in the future? Do we tell a story of scarcity? Or do we tell a story of possibility and growth and flourishing? What do we believe and what do we enact? A few weeks ago, I preached on the river of community, and some of you were here for that service. I shared that there is a Passover ritual using Miriam's cup, and at the Passover meal, if you need something, you can pour water from the cup. If you have extra to share, you add some of your water to the cup. In this way, everyone gets what they need, and everyone who is able can give. I would like to enact this kind of story of giving and receiving here at this congregation. The community feeds you and your spirit, and the community even feeds those who find it easier to give than to receive. And those who can help feed the community learn to drink as they pour. In this way, we become a community that is continually nourished and replenished and thrives more and more. What stories do you live by and tell and retell in your lives? What stories do you need to say no to, like the I can't story? What stories do you need to distance yourself from? And how can you choose to be an actor in better stories by framing how you tell your stories? How can you choose to be an actor in better stories by changing the way you frame your stories? And how can we choose the best stories to tell and enact here at this Unitarian congregation of Mendon and Uxbridge? Let us live under the best stories we can. Let us frame our stories in the most helpful, most beneficial ways. And let us be the best actors in those stories that we choose to tell and enact. Amen, and blessed be. Thank you, Matt. I have 4 announcements this morning. One, Shirley made us a sign-up sheet for coffee hour hosting and for bringing flowers, and that is up in Goss Hall. And we would love for more of you to sign up in the coming weeks. So take a look at that sign-up sheet and pick a week that you can help out. Thank you to Sue for doing coffee hour today. Secondly, we are still collecting food for the Milford Community Meals Program. This is a program that serves people in the wider Milford community who are in need of some extra food and help. This is a collaboration between several local churches, and we are bringing food over. Whenever the box gets full, I bring it over. So they're especially looking for bottles of water, cans of soup and chili and pasta, breakfast foods. They always need bottles of water. So if you could donate some food, you can leave it in the box in the entryway, or even leave it on the front steps out there. And if the church is not open, and the next person who comes in to the building can bring it in. Also, they're looking for volunteers on Thursday afternoons if anyone can help. The next announcement I have, as I have been announcing in recent weeks, we are having the service for Brian Allard tomorrow morning at the Friends Quaker Cemetery on George Street in Mendon. The service is at 10 o'clock, and the family is providing boxed lunches at the church afterwards. So please continue to send good thoughts to the family, some of whom are present here today. If there is severe rain, I think we will hold the service in the sanctuary. So I think if it's a light sprinkling, we'll still hold the service. But if it's pouring cats and dogs and a thunderstorm or whatever, we'll have it in the church. So we'll have to make that call in the morning. But hopefully that'll work out in a good way. Finally, I want to announce the Animal Blessing Service, which will be next Sunday. And this will be held on the front lawn at the regular time, 10:30. And you are invited to bring all your friends. Bring your four-legged friends, bring your friends with wings, bring your friends with scales. You can even bring your two-legged friends. Children are welcome to bring stuffed animals. If you have pets that have passed or that are too not well-behaved enough to bring, you can bring a picture of them. Whatever you would like blessed around the animal companions that we have in our lives. I'll be on the front lawn, and it'll be a lot of fun. We hope some folks in the wider community will come out next week. Those are all my announcements. Is there anyone else who had an announcement? Okay. We will go into the candles of joy and concern. I have a few, but I would like to invite any of you who have one to come forward and say your name and light the candle and tell us what you have to share. Is there anyone?
Concern for my husband who's in assisted living, and he wasn't doing too well when I saw him last. He was almost comatose, running a fever. So other than that, he was a very vibrant husband, a Renaissance man who could do anything.
Wow.
Start a business, repair an engine, just build anything. He was just an amazing person. We had a wonderful life together. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. If you heard that, was for her husband, Bill, who was in the memory care facility at the time. We think of Bill.
Thank you.
Well, at the risk of being too political, I guess I'll light two candles. The first one is a candle of concern for what's happening in Washington and our inability to get things done, and why is compromise a bad thing? The second, on those same lines, it's going to be harder to light, so it's going to be harder to do. But a candle of hope that our system of government can perform, that we can get it done, and that also to understand there's a difference in the legislative process versus life. Because I believe in Frank Sinatra, doing it my way, right? Free spirits, no compromise. If I feel strongly about something, I'll fight for it or never give up, right? Never give up. And that's fine for society and social, but it's not the way to run a Republican government based on democracy, based on one man, one vote. So I'm hopeful we're getting rid of gerrymandering. I never thought I'd see it, but I'm hopeful that we're going to bring back the process. I've even forgotten the term of where laws can put money coming to my district to get a thing passed. Because you need tools to get the 51% to pass a law. And so if it gets caught in, no, that's not good for me or my people or my district, how do you make a consensus, or not even a consensus, get the 51? You've got to be able to negotiate and compromise. Long-winded.
Thank you, Peter. Is there anyone else? All right, I'll light the candles that I know of. The first candle is for Marge West, who cannot be here today because she injured her arm. So we hope she has a speedy recovery and can be back with us soon. Thinking of you, Marge. Thinking of you, Tim, as you probably need to help out more if she's not able to do everything. She normally is. I have 2 more candles I'm going to light. They didn't ask me to light these candles, but I think they will appreciate it. Another candle for our dear member, Leslie Cape, who can't be here because of her health situation oftentimes. And she's starting a second round of chemotherapy at this time. And so this one is again for you, Leslie. We're sending you lots of good thoughts. And also, Marcia Matthews wrote to me and said that she couldn't be here today because they're having a family celebration for her son's birthday. She said she has a few other family commitments this month, but she hopes to be with us much more in November. So, for Marcia and for her son's birthday. And I will light this final candle for those things that remain unspoken in our hearts and minds. Those things we hold in the deep corners of our hearts that we do not want to say out loud right now, but we hold them and we lift up our hearts together. And one more candle for the Allard family for tomorrow, for the service for Brian. May it provide peace, comfort, and closure. I will now extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but we carry with us the warmth of caring community, the light that comes from seeking knowledge, and the flame of passionate commitment. These we carry with us. We will have the serenity prayer and the benediction. After those 2 elements, we will have the organ postlude, which I will announce now. That will be number 138, These Things Shall Be. And now let us join together in saying the serenity prayer as the tradition of this congregation is. God grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Benediction by Ian Huntington Bear. You are in the story of the world. You are the world coming to know itself. May you trust that all you will ever say or do belongs in the story of the world. Go and be the actors in the best stories possible, and go in peace until we are together again. Please join us for coffee hour.